I brought myself. I am your worship. Lord, receive this living sacrifice. I am your worship. Happy Saturday. I'm going to give you guys a quick second to jump on, and then I'm going to go right in. Very spontaneous. Well, I'm about to say very spontaneous live, but I had in my mind that I would go live today. Right around this time, I wasn't sure exactly what time it would be, but I did have in my mind that I was going to go live today because I haven't seen y'all. Did I see y'all on live last week? I think it's been almost 2 weeks since the last time I went live. I want to say, yeah, it's been about 2 weeks since the last time I went live. I did not go live last week Sunday on Mother's Day. I had a very full weekend and a very full day on Sunday. And so I didn't even, I thought about it, but I said, you know what? I'm not even going to force this one. I got in a good bit later than I normally would on a Sunday for the sake of the holiday. And so I didn't go live last week. Nevertheless, if you are watching this, I'm so thankful for you and glad that you and I both are here on a big Saturday. Let me know how you're doing in the chat. Let me know how the weather is where you are. It has been rainy here. It was a little overcast earlier. It's been pouring down for the last, well, at least the last hour or so. I was at an event earlier this morning and into the afternoon. And so since I came out of the event, it's been raining. The rain kind of slacked. And from what it looks like, it's supposed to clear up by about 4 o'clock. So that gives me another hour and a half to get some things done. And then at 4, I'm going to get out and about for about an hour or so. That's the plan anyway. At any rate, first thing I want to say is thank you for all of the birthday wishes the other week. I appreciate it. I don't think I've been on since then. Super appreciated. Beautiful birthday. Very busy day. Because I did work that day and had a full day. A great celebration with my family. And as y'all know, I do the whole month. So I still got some things planned for birthday month. You know, some self-care things. May is absolutely a rest month for me. And I may have said that in a video, but it was so confirmed to me because I had a couple of things I was getting ready to put on my docket that surprisingly it wasn't for me to put on my docket. So I have very much been able to rest a good little bit when it comes to just adding extra unnecessary things so far this month. And it's like, it's today the 18th. The month is almost over. It just, time goes by so fast. So it's been very much a time of I've been busy, working and doing different things on my job and with my business. I'm very grateful for some of the things that are happening right now that require my time and my attention. But just that has just been a whole new feel for me in this month when it comes to truly what it means to um, rest in God and trust that God is working things out, and trust that when I get a set of instructions from God, or when I am walking out something that I'm supposed to consistently do that maybe I've already been doing for a long time. I've had such a sense of knowing that, like, even though I can't see exactly all how God is working things, He got it. I can't even stress on it. I can't even stress about it. That's really been the vibe for me this month, and I'm very thankful for that. So yeah, I just wanted to pop in and say hello. I went to a phenomenal performance earlier today, and I'll tell y'all about that maybe tomorrow because I do plan on doing my JSU live tomorrow. But today, I've had some different thoughts, thinking about different things, but they have all come around to a central encouraging point that I want to share today. And I think I might title it, depending on how this goes, use the information the right way. Use the information the right way. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So I was thinking today as I was sitting in the performance earlier, and I was in performance one of more than one performance, and there was a really great performance. There were some different things they were working with the lights and different things like that that I know that for the next set or the next show or the next performance after the one that I was at, they're gonna have locked in is gonna run even more smoothly than it did this time. And just as a performer myself in different capacities, I was just thinking about how when we do a performance or plan a program or do whatever, we learn things. So the first time through, we learn things. We learn things in the rehearsal. We learn things in the run through. We learn things in the first show, and we take what we learn and we improve on it so that things get better and better and better, and that things run more and more and more smoothly. So I was thinking about that today when I was sitting in this show, how um you know, just because I'm a performer and I think about these things, and not only a performer, when it comes to events and stuff, some of every capacity I've served in. Whether I was the person that was serving the people who were the guests or who were the people going to be on stage, or whether I was a part of the cleanup and setup crew when I've done things with two of my best friends that are like event planners. I've just been on every side of events. And in all parts, you learn something every time where you're supposed to improve. Some of the lessons are harder to take than others, but on every side of a performance, whether you're at the ticket door or whether you're parking people, you're supposed to get better by what you learn, right? So hold on to that, because remember that our point today is use the information the right way. And then I also thought about how last night I found myself watching the Challenger series, the limited series on Netflix. And even though, I've heard many things about the Challenger over the years, I realized last night when I was watching the Netflix series, The Challenger, that incident happened when let me not date myself. I was about to say too much. I was alive. I was a youngin' at the time when the Challenger incidents happened. But watching the series, it was actually my first time paying attention to all of the details of what actually took place. And if anybody has seen it, let me know. Let me take this down so I can actually see the chat. If anybody has seen The Challenger, I believe that's what it's called, on Netflix. It's a series about the catastrophe that happened with NASA back in '86. And watching the series, I learned so many details that I had never thought about, never, I guess, took the time out to research. I knew certain things, like I knew about Ronald McNair because he's from South Carolina. So he would be one of the people that I would learn a good little bit about in history when I was growing up. But some of the details of what caused that accident to take place, and learning that it was completely, like, totally unnecessary tragedy that happened due to a problem that was not new. So basically, without telling the whole story for those people who have not watched it and who do not know a lot about it, I encourage you to watch it. It's, history, and you can always learn something from that. For the most part, what I learned from watching it was that there had been, I don't know, over 10. There have been many, many launches through NASA using this same company that made their, I think it's called boosters. And they had the same problem every time. Sometimes the problem was more severe than others, but they were blessed that all of their launches prior to the Challenger, well, that last one of the Challenger, they still were able to get where they were going safely in the spacecraft and get back home safely. maybe once or twice there were emergencies. One where there was an emergency like landing, and they were able to like crash down in the water, and all of the hi there, and all of the astronauts were able to use the, what do you call them, parachutes, and they were recovered. But basically, what I learned from watching that series is that multiple times, over and over and over and over again, nothing was done about the problem that they realized that they were having. That they realized was happening with the booster, whatever thing that keeps the booster sealed, so that the gas and all of the things didn't go up into the spacecraft and cause an explosion. But every time, the powers that be okayed it and said, well, this is a learning experience. It's a risk. We don't really know what to do about it, and we have pressure put on us to launch, so we're going to continue to launch. Long story short, if you've seen it, you already know this, and if you were alive during that time or you've studied that time because you're interested in that, you already know. The thing that caused them to actually stop what they were doing and figure out how to fix this problem was 7 people dying in a very unnecessary explosion due to ignoring the problem. All right. So, from last night and then up until now, when I was up until earlier today, when I was sitting in the performance, and I, just saw some of the little things, little kinks that they were going to be working out that I'm sure are going to be like completely phenomenal in their next show. I was just thinking about how, even in our lives, especially when it comes to relationships, our relationships with God, ourselves, and others, how everything is data. So we know this. We know that everything that happens is a piece of data. Sometimes it is more important or less important data to our immediate situations, but everything is data. And how, just like you know, with performances, when there's kinks and things mess up, we use the information to fix it, make it better, smoother the next time. Sometimes we handle our relationships the same way the challengers, engineers, and the people that worked in those different departments ended up handling what happened when those 7 people were lost. We get the information, but we don't use it well. Sometimes we get the information and we're in denial, so we don't do anything about it because we don't know what to do about it, or because we think that what we're supposed to do about it is going to be too hard or it's going to take too long. Sometimes we get the information and we, instead of going and putting pressure on whoever it is that can actually make a change or make a difference in the situation, we may take it to people who can't do anything about it, or people who don't have the knowledge to do anything about it. Or sometimes the information is given directly to us because we're the person who can do something about it. But instead of us doing something about it, we pass the buck. We pass it on to someone else and say, well, yes, it's such and such is a problem, but it can be fixed if such and such changes, or if such and such will do such and such. We do the same thing in relationships. Um, and I made the connection thinking just about all of the things that are going on the internet, where everyone is talking about um, Mr. Sean Combs and Cassie, and how, you know, all of the craziness that happened and what we saw that was just unspeakable, what we were able to see, what was posted online that we were able to see. And also knowing that if that's what we could see because that was done in a semi-public place, only God knows. It is probably unfathomable what else happened in that relationship. And I thought about how, in abusive type situations, or toxic situations, or just situations that are extremely unhealthy, how oftentimes between an abuser or an abusive personality type, that person and the person who is being abused, there's all kinds of information being transmitted back and forth. But we oftentimes, until we start to become healthy, or until we become so sick that we seek a change, we do not use the information well. And this is what I mean. And I thought about this earlier as well, when I was listening to someone talk about how they interpret situations that don't work out, or a no in different situations. Oftentimes between an abusive personality type, or a person who is abusive for whatever reason, oftentimes 99.9% of the times due to their own trauma. um, Sometimes the person who is being abused is getting the information. They're getting the information that something is off, something is wrong, even before it turns into physical abuse. Something is wrong with the way this person communicates with me, or something is wrong with the way this person communicates with others, or something is wrong with whatever. We get that information. But sometimes we use the information wrong. We take that information and we interpret it as, oh, maybe I can do something that will make the person do better, or that will make the person change. Or sometimes we take the information and we interpret it to mean, oh, it's for sure it's something that I did wrong, or this person would not be an abusive person. So we're getting data, we're getting information, but we're not using it well. We're using the information wrongly. And oftentimes, a person who is abusive or manipulative, that is 100% what they want you to do. They want to take whatever they do to you to influence you to behave a particular way, to behave within the realm of their mind, and within the realm of whatever way they want to control, right? But the problem is, when it comes to the information that is being transmitted back and forth, we're usually one extreme or the other. Sometimes the one extreme is, oh, what's wrong with that person? And they must have trauma. Let me try to fix them. But usually not until it is far too late in the game, or time has been far spent, do we start to look at, what is it within me that makes me think or believe that my changing, or my doing something different, is going to change that person, as opposed to looking within and saying, what is it within me that drives me to want to do that? What is it within me that drives me to um, want to basically be codependent, want to put my whole life and well-being on the line, and take the risk with hopes that someone else will change, as opposed to doing what is the thing that is going to help me to change, and what is going to help me to be healthy. This is very much the dynamic that happens in a lot of relationships. I'm not, and at this point, I'm not specifically talking about the the Diddy and Cassie situation. I just, because that is in the news right now, and because it was such a shocking sight right now, people are thinking and talking a lot about um, abusive and toxic relationships. So again, I don't know their situation. I know what I saw, but I'm speaking in general, from more of a counseling perspective, but also from a human perspective of not doing the right thing with information, of knowing how easy it is sometimes to not do the right thing with the information that we receive. Um, I thought about how we personalize other people's trauma. And when we personalize other people's trauma, when we make what happened to someone else, when we make that about us, then it also makes us numb to our own traumas. So what am I saying? Sometimes a person, and this is not just a man abusing a woman, it could be the other way around, but we obviously know it is a lot more pervasive for it to be the male being the perpetrator. But again, I know that that is not always the case. Sometimes a woman is very much the perpetrator, but more often than not, especially when it comes to physical and physical abuse and like psychological manipulation, a lot of times it is a man being the perpetrator. Sometimes it is a woman. Again, let me just say that one more time. But um, sometimes, like, if you meet someone and you notice like toxic or manipulative things that they do, that's data, that's information. And if you have some form of boundaries and you put those boundaries up, and that causes a breach in the relationship, that is information. But sometimes we take that information and we question ourselves and say like, oh, well, maybe I could do this, or maybe I could do that. And instead of taking that information and depersonalizing it and realizing that, a person is who they are and they were who they were before you ever showed up, we take that information and we personalize it or internalize it, which is what comes with the abuse dynamic. Instead of seeing and accepting and receiving that intel, when you can see that a person, maybe is very, it is very, I don't know what's the word, negative or very toxic, or maybe you see like a person, like say for example, like if you're very joyful or if you're a very encouraging person, and you notice that, while you are often encouraging and lifting this person up, they will find opportunities to put you down, or they will find opportunities to say little slick things to make you question your worth and to make you question yourself. Um, that is data, but oftentimes we don't use the data the right way immediately. Instead of seeing and acknowledging that person's issue in their own insecurity and understanding that something happened to that person in their life that had nothing to do with me. So there's nothing that I personally can do to fix it, but pray for them and make sure that I'm having healthy boundaries and keeping myself in a healthy space. Instead of using that information that way, sometimes we use that information to dig our heels in hope that, in hopes that something that we can do or change from within is going to change, another person. Oftentimes we do that because as human beings, we don't like failure. We don't like, rejection, or we don't like when something doesn't go the way we initially saw it going in our heads. We want good ideas to work, or things that we thought were good ideas and we can only see the surface. So what do we do when we get that information, and when we get that intel, or even when the shoe is on the other foot, even when you recognize or realize your responses or your reactions to things and people, and you realize like something's not healthy about that. Instead of tapping into that, if we use that information to project onto other people, or if we use that information to, um, just be more resourceful or finding ways to stay distracted and to stay numbed, we use the information wrong. The information was there. That tugging feeling that let you know that something was wrong within, with a response that you had to something, whether it was someone, being toxic towards you or unhealthy towards you, or whether it was you being toxic towards someone or unhealthy towards someone, even if it was just in your thoughts. We have to get to a place where we are good stewards of the data that we receive when we are interacting, with others. Not to be confused with being super judgmental, being, so walled up that it is far beyond guarded so that we cannot connect with people. That's not what I mean. But I mean, when we decide that we are going to use information well, and filter information that we receive through truth, then we don't have to be walled up because we have a lot more trust, first of all, in God, and second, within ourselves and our own judgment and ability to, make decisions that we can have healthy relationships even with people who are not necessarily healthy. We just know what boundaries, we know what the limitations are. Um, I thought about even within like a work situation. You can have maybe people that you think are great, people that you enjoy, that you like very much. But it doesn't take long sometimes to see where, like, okay, this might be someone I can have coffee with and we can, laugh and crack jokes every now and then. But this might not necessarily be someone that I need to tell when I'm going through my deepest, darkest. This might not be, someone that I need to call when I need prayer. Not because there's anything wrong with the person, not because you don't like the person, but just because you understand your limitations. You are using information well. Instead of burying information, instead of pushing it down, instead of distorting the information and making mean what we want it to mean, we learn to use information well. So, just like with the performances, for a person who's a performer or an event planner, with every event, you learn what can change, what can be something that can be done better, especially if it's something that's going to be repeated. Just like with things that where people's lives are in the balance. Watching that Challenger movie, it just showed me, like, it was a reminder to me of how strong the need to be accepted, the need to be um, received or looked at as someone of competence, how strong that can be, especially when it comes to ego. The man that was the one who actually gave the go ahead, knowing that he had been advised not to do that because of the pressure of reputation and because of the pressure of money. He went ahead and told the people to do it anyway, even though the people who built the thing told him, this is not safe, don't do it. Knowing that there were 7 people, including someone who did not even work in that field, that were going, it wasn't enough for him to say no because of what somebody else was going to think. That's how strong the decision making can be when the need to be accepted is off, when the insecurity is high, when the security in God and knowing who He made each of us to be and what our purpose is and how important the things that He gives us to steward are, how consequential it is for us to do things well. It doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but how consequential it is for us to make ethical decisions, especially when people's lives are on the line. The need to get a pat on the back from somebody was strong enough for this man to sign off and send that ship up, that shuttle up into the air, only for it to explode, killing 7 people 7 seconds after it went up. That was just an example of sometimes how, even in our own lives, we are given the intel, we are given the cues, we are given the information, and we don't use it well. But I believe that all of these things that we see happening now, and I said this to someone a couple of months ago, someone who had mentioned to me, well, I won't even say the scandal, but it was a particular something that was going on that had gone like viral on the internet from a respected individual. Someone had mentioned it to me, and what came to my heart and my mind at the time that that person mentioned it to me was that God is allowing exposures to bring revival. Like, these exposures are not just for people to be exposed and for us to be entertained by the exposures, or for us to be like, oh my gosh, so and so did such and such. No, especially within God's church, exposures should lead to revival. Exposures should lead to everyone being willing to examine their own heart and give an account. Exposures should lead to us asking God to save us from ourselves, and being willing to humble ourselves and learning to, I guess, respond in life based off of what really matters and not what other people are going to think. Like, exposures are supposed to actually bring forth fruit. And the fruit of exposure is not the scandal of it. The fruit of exposure is not people being embarrassed. Like, that's not what the fruit of exposure should be. The fruit of exposure should be the desperation sometimes that is needed in order for us to seek healing. The fruit of exposure should be breaking up, or um, bringing to an end a system that allows us to continue to be uh, unhealthy spiritually, emotionally, mentally. That's what exposure should bring. So while, you know, I hate to see people be exposed, because at the end of the day, nobody wants their sins put out for the world to see. I would, my prayer is always for myself and everyone else that we would um, be humble enough to come to repentance and right our wrongs, and you know, seek peace with all men, and live lives that, where we're able to follow peace with people, and be at peace with ourselves and God. Like that's my desire. I believe that, that's ultimately what God wants. It's not even just so that people can be exposed or embarrassed, but at the end of the day, it is very clear to us what happens for evildoers, and sometimes for people who are not evildoers, it is very hard to fathom, like, how could so and so do such and such. But it just brings it home to us that everything is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. Everything that everything we look at and we're like, I don't understand it, whether it's with someone else or even within ourselves, we might say like, I don't. Why can't I get such and such right? Or, man, that was. Why did I do that? Looking back, maybe on mistakes that were made. Everything is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. Um, a lot of the people are using a lot of, counseling and psych human behavior language right now as they're talking about what happened with the gentleman and the young lady in the video that CNN leaked. And I think that's good, because we are starting to look at things for what they actually are, instead of just saying like, oh my gosh, so and so is a monster and why would they do such and such. We're starting to hear people say, like, clearly this person has some insecurity beyond what is fathomable to most, in some form of trauma that has turned them into someone who would behave in such a way. There are others who will go so far as to say, okay, y'all been hearing people give names to some of these demons, and for us to look at it and be like, okay, it would have had to be, there had to been some evil spirit in operation to make this person do that. This is good to me. This is good. We're starting to look at things for what they are, instead of just labeling people as this or as that because of what we've seen them do or who we've seen them show themselves to be. We're starting to look at, like, okay, we all need to look at it, understand that unacknowledged, unrecognized, undealt with trauma will turn anyone into whoever the devil wants them to be. Whether, we are people who have been affected by these things directly or not, we're all affected. With the example of what CNN dropped yesterday, I don't know too many people who could watch that and be completely unaffected, unless there are people who have experienced some traumas of their own that will cause them to be able to be numb to that, or whether there are people who are perpetrators of that and that continue to be perpetrators of that. The only way we will ever see healing is when we are willing to deal with those things. We are far past the stage of just what do you call behavior management. We're past that. We can look around and see that we're past just don't do this and don't do that. We're past that at this point. It's time for us to look at the reasons why we do the things we do and be willing to seek the answer deeply. Be willing to soul search, dig deep within. Um, we are past the time of just shaming people and then letting them sit in that until it happens again and then we have somebody new to shame. We're past that, because I believe, even for maybe even a lot of people who are out there talking about this stuff now, that a lot of people saw those videos or maybe have seen things like it and they recognize that within themselves. My hope is that people will see, like, men and women will see that and be like, that could have 100% been me. For men and women who are abuse survivors, who maybe have not experienced anything as severe as what we saw, or maybe those who did, I believe that people, and my prayer and my hope is that more people than just one or two are seeing those things and realizing like that could have 100% been me. And so instead of just sitting up talking about people and having a gossip fest about it, those who have some level of health and you're able to be of support in some way, I hope that we're more motivated to do that. Those of us who know the words of prayer, who are believers, um, and who believe that God chastens those He loves. My prayer and my hope, my desire and my commitment is to be in prayer for people and to be strategic with opportunities to bring health and to bring healing, to lead people to a place where they can be rid of their shame. Um, Not many people in this world who are abusers were not abused. Not many. Sure, there are people here and there who just, a demon got them real good as soon as they were born and they became just abusers out of nowhere. But it's going to be hard to find. You're going to be hard pressed. Most people who are abusers to some degree, whether it is something that has caused a lot of issues in their life, or even if it's something that is suppressed or that has been perpetrated within a particular limitation. All abusers in some shape or form, in some way, shape, or form, are victims themselves. Whether it is just whether it is being a victim of someone who hurt an abuser as a child, or whether it is just some crippling insecurity and some lie that Satan has spoken so much that you believe it about yourself. Every person who's abusive and manipulative is controlled by a spirit, basically, maybe more than one spirit. And also, every person who perpetuates abuse by staying in abuse, in a lot of cases, are also oftentimes influenced by a similar spirit. Like, we talk so much about how people who are manipulators and narcissists and abusive and all of these things, how insecure they are. But we don't all the time, we're not always willing to speak up. Now, I'm talking about when it comes to healing. I'm not talking about blaming or putting the blame on this person or that person. It is never your responsibility for someone who decides to be an abuser. I don't care what you did or who you are or whether you're insecure or not. But as people who maybe um, have found themselves in multiple abusive situations, like over and over and over and over and over, there are certain crippling oppressions that people deal with that make them stay in those situations, or that make them go into those situations. I don't care if you want to take it all the way down to just the spirit of fear. The spirit of fear, which is such a connection to so many other strongholds. The spirit of fear is enough to keep someone in a toxic situation. The spirit of fear is what gets people in situations in the first place. This is it, and I don't think anybody who's watching this or who will watch this cannot think of at least one situation they ended up in out of fear. Be it a relationship, it could be a job, it can even be purchasing a home or a car. Think of a situation where your decision was fear based. The consequences of that can be so far reaching. So I guess what I'm saying is no one is exempt. Not one soul that is cognizant and aware of what is happening in this world right now is exempt. We all have a responsibility to use the information, the intel that we are getting from ourselves and the people around us. The intel, unfortunately, the voice of the adversary, we got to use the information well. So I'm saying that, but let me give one way. And this is something that I actually, share with PC Care clients, because it works and because I have my own personal experience with it, and so many people I'm sure could hop on this with a testimony. Here's a piece of intel that we don't always use well. So we know, and when I say we, just for this moment, I'm talking about people who are believers in Jesus Christ, people who believe that the Bible is the living Word of God. That's what I'm talking about when I say we in this instance. We believe, or we know, according to the Bible, that Satan is the father of lies. Right? That's information. That's intel. We all may have a different revelation of Satan being the father of lies based upon what God has revealed in His Word, or what He's revealed through our lives and our situations, or maybe other people's lives have been a case study for us. We know that Satan is the father of lies. So that's a piece of information. Do we use that piece of information well, though? If we know that Satan is the father of lies, when we have days or moments or seasons that are difficult, and there are certain lies being repeated to us in our hearts and in our minds, we tend to sometimes still think that it's us. We tend to think that, like, oh, we're down on ourselves or whatever. But it's like we forgot that intel. We forgot that vital information that Satan is the father of lies. We also know from reading the Word of God that Satan is the accuser of the brethren. All right. So for those of us who are believers, and maybe there's some imperfections, or there's some weaknesses, or some places where God has revealed that a change needs to take place. In those moments when you're realizing, like, okay, such and such I have to get a handle on, because God has enlightened to me how He feels about it and what He says about me, so such and such has to change. In those moments, sometimes it becomes difficult to grab a hold of change and restoration because of the accusations that are being thrown at us, the names that we are being called. Nobody has to be actually calling us those names, but it can be just coming into our hearts from the enemy. You're not this, or you're not that, or you'll never change, or oh, you think you're so holy, or you think you're good, such and such and such. Accusations. So we have the information. We already know that Satan is the accuser of the brethren. But we don't always connect with that when it's time. When we are being accused, and we need to stand in who God says that we are. Sometimes we forget that Satan is the accuser, and we internalize the lies that are being said to us. So, situation where we don't always use information well. So what should we do? What should we do? We have to rehearse the truth. We have to make sure we have a handle on what the truth actually is. If Satan is the father of lies, if we don't want lies and we want the truth, then we have to know what the truth is. We have to seek the truth, and we have to ask God for the power to live in truth. Another situation where we don't always use information well, and this is the last one I give for now. Um, and I remember I saw something yesterday where someone repeated this, but of course they said it their own way about how they respond to rejection now, and that they've learned, like, to trust God when it comes to rejection. I'm not saying exactly how they said it, but basically that's the point they were making. That is something that is another opportunity. That is another place where we don't always use information well. Um, you can walk into a space knowing that um, God made you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. You're talented. You are confident. You are prepared. You have the tools for a particular situation. And then you walk into the situation, and for whatever reason, maybe you're not the person who's chosen. It could be for a job. It could be in a dating situation, or someone who you thought something was going to work out with. It could be trying out for a performance. Anything where you got to put yourself out there in hopes that something will come your way that it is not necessarily in your power to bring your way, other than you just showing up and being yourself. If it doesn't work out and you're not the person chosen for the job, Um, your boundaries are unacceptable in a particular relationship doesn't work out. Um, you know, your personality doesn't jive with the business team, whatever it is. Instead of taking that information to know and say, you know what, I'm thankful for the experience, but that was not the situation for me, we use the information the wrong way. We take that to mean, oh, something's wrong with me, or oh, if I had been this, or if I had done that, instead of taking the information that we get from the Word of God that says that all things work together for the good of those who love God and who are called according to His purpose. Um, we don't always use information well, but we can be more intentional to use information well. So that's how I wrap this one up. I just wanted to get that off of my chest, out of my mind rather, because it wasn't really on my chest. I wasn't pressed like that. But it has been kind of circulating since really yesterday when I started watching the Challenger video, the Challenger movies, series, whatever thing on Netflix yesterday. And then as I was processing the stuff that was happening in the news with the gentleman and the young lady in the just most disgusting abuse situation that was put out there for the world to see. Um, let's make sure we use the information well, right? Let's not just gossip about it. Let's just not gossip about it. I don't want to say just not like gossip, but do other things too. But at the same time, I'm not saying don't talk about it because something like this is something that we need to talk about. But I hope that we will use the information well. That if you are an abuser out there, or if you are someone who you have it's in you, you know that it has welled up, and maybe either you've done something like what we saw, or maybe you thought about doing something like what we saw, or maybe you already do something like what we saw, but maybe it's more psychological and emotional. My prayer is that the information will be used well that was put out there that we saw. That we will know that when the Bible says that basically justice, at the end of the day, justice is going to be served. You cannot be wicked perpetually and it not, excuse me, come back on you at some point. It's going you're going to give an account. Like you can get away for a short amount of time, but you're not going to get away forever. I hope that the people who would watch this, that know that they need to make amends and that they have done something similar or had the same motive, which is really to to debase and inflict on another human being the hatred that one has for oneself. If you know that you are someone like that, my prayer is that you will deal with your trauma, whatever happened to you that has gotten you to a place where you thrive, you get supply off of debasing another human being. I have compassion for you. Um, my heart goes out to you because that cannot be that has to be the most miserable place to be, where the joy and the peace and the contentment, which is not even joy, peace, and contentment, the temporary relief from self-hatred is to destroy another human being. That's not a that cannot be, that cannot be a good place to be, even for a wicked person. But for the people who have found themselves, or I would say for all of us, any situations that we can look back on where it was just like, you know what, I allowed, or I tolerated, or I even entertained less respect than I ever should have. Let us do that deep work to look within. Let us be willing to address the traumas that we have experienced. Um, First with God, with ourselves, with professional help if we can receive that, or with our own prayer and study, with community, so that we can do better and so that we can help the next person along the way. Let us not use the information for gossip and not for grace, basically. And when I say grace, I don't mean excusing and continuing to hide. If somebody being brought out on CNN is the only way that the abuse is going to stop and that that person is going to fall before a living God, let it be so. That's how I feel about it. But if a person can heal before they get to that place and be a witness to come back and help other people heal, I'm all for that too. And since I use them as an example, I definitely want to publicly say my prayers do very much go out, and not just no thoughts and prayers, like literal prayers go out to the young people in that situation, but also for every man or woman that is walking through some form of insecurity or doubt within yourself because of the way you were treated or something that was done to you. Um, as a child, or even if you're the person that is the survivor of abuse now, my heart very much does go out to you. My prayers are absolutely with you. My prayers are with all of us, because the times that we are living in, man, I just feel like if we will choose well and use the information well, we can do a lot of healing, because we are very much in the information age. Everything is at the tip of our fingers, 24/7, 365. We really got to get to a place where we are determined to use information well. We're in the information age. We're constantly getting data, even if there was never an internet for us to get on, if there was never a Google, a YouTube, a IG, a CNN, a none of that. If it was never any of that, the interactions that we have with others, the experiences that we have within ourselves, and the warnings that God gives us, the way God just shows up in our everyday lives, the intel is there. The information is there. Let us use it the right way. Let us use it for truth. Let us learn the truth. Let us get clear in our hearts and in our minds so that we can heal, and so that we can not just be rich people. Like, I hope that we are seeing right now that money is not enough. It is an answer. It is an answer. The Bible tells us that money is an answer. It is an answer to some things, but it's not the answer, because we don't want to be billionaires that are so depraved that we live our lives really, basically, we have to numb to live. We have to numb through drugs, alcohol, sex, violence. Being a billionaire does not absolve the turmoil that is taking place within because of darkness, basically, spiritual wickedness, literal demonic spirits oppressing people, making them abuser or making them the perpetually abused. I hope and pray. I hope and pray. At least just everyone who will see this, because I can start there, that we will begin to use information well. If we are Bible scholars, let us not just use our Bible scholarships. Let us not be those who will argue for the existence of God and the truth of Jesus Christ, but we will not contend for righteousness. Let us not be those who will argue and contend for the faith, but who will also argue and contend for some of the toxicity that comes with patriarchy. Let us not be those. Let us be those, if we're going to preach Jesus, let us make sure we talk about and live and worship in spirit and in truth. Let us not use the Bible and weaponize the Bible to perpetuate abusive cycles. Let's not do that, because that's not what it's for at all. But we can use it for that, because it might be comfortable depending on where we are in life. Let us not do that. Let us use the Bible to show people who Christ really is and what he came to do in this earth. Let us help people to know who they are by showing them the God in us, and by allowing them to see God through our lives. Let us, and ways we can do that, is not just by being loving and being a witness. It's by being willing to do our own work. Every single body. It's by us being willing to do our own work. Period. Let us use information well, because the intel is there. Let us use information well. All right. I think that's all I want to say. I'm sure there's more. But I'll be back tomorrow. I already know the topic that I'm going to talk about tomorrow, but I won't share it. I am going to, well, I will share it because I'm going to put a preview thing up for tomorrow's live, for the JSU live. So I am back tomorrow, Sunday. I missed last Sunday. I hope everyone enjoyed their Mother's Day. Um, but I will be back tomorrow for our JSU live. I'd love to hear your comments below. And just say hi. Let me know in the chat if you came through to watch the video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I'm supposed to say that at the beginning, but I always forget. Um, because I'm usually in my car, but I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better to tell y'all to like, share, and subscribe. Matter of fact, I wonder if, can I pin my own comment? Let me try. Let me see if I can pin my own comment. Well, no. After this downloads and does the little 5K whatever upgrade thing, I will pin in the comments to like, share, and subscribe. All right. Thank y'all for watching. Please use information well. I hope you enjoy your Saturday, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.